Week 14 of the NFL is here, so it's time to make my money line predictions and best bets. We are starting it off with maybe the worst primetime game in the history of the NFL. That may not be an understatement there. Patriots, who cannot move the ball. They've gotten shut out twice this year at home. They've lost 3 games this year where their defense has given up 10 points or less. They go to Pittsburgh now. We know Kenny Pickett's out with ankle surgery. We know he's out 2 to 4 weeks. We know Mitch Trubisky will be in there. And in my opinion, New England is getting too many points. So my first best bet of the week is coming right here, Thursday Night Football. I'm not picking the Patriots to win. I rarely do this. I know more people do this than others, but I rarely will take points for a team that I don't think is going to win the game. I did it last year for a Jets Bills situation. I think the Jets were getting 9.5, and I said I think Buffalo was going to win, but I think the Jets are going to cover. I was right on that. I'm doing it for another game this week as well. But I like New England +6 here. Again, not a win, just to cover. Both of these offenses cannot move the ball. I think there's going to be like a 13-10 game. I mean, no one's really looking forward to it. It may be less than that. The over-under here is 30.5. I'll be honest with you. I think I take the under in this game. I think it's going to be a lot of punts, a lot of field position, a lot of New England running the ball with Ezekiel Elliott, a lot of Pittsburgh running the ball with Najee Harris, Jalen Warren. In the end, it's Mitch Trubisky versus Bailey Zappi. It is Belichick in a short week. Their defense has played very well. I think Pittsburgh makes one more play. They probably make one more field goal. Again, they'll win the game by 3. And I've taken the Steelers a lot this year, as everybody that listens or watches the podcast knows. I've taken them probably half the season in best bets because I always know what I'm going to get out of Pittsburgh. They're not going to win by a touchdown. They're probably not going to get blown out most weeks. Outside of San Francisco week 1, they really are a team that will win or lose by about 3 or 4 points. It seems like almost every single week. New England out the Chargers' vaunted offense down to 6 points. I think they can do the same here with Pittsburgh and sort of limit them to 10 to 13 points, keep them in the ball game. My second best bet is coming right off the board again here. Jaguars starting CJ Beathard. Browns, we're going to assume are going to start Joe Flacco, even though, again, he is on the practice squad. He's a protected practice squad player. It's more roster flexibility during the week. Flacco did play pretty well against the Rams last week, even though the Browns got trounced. A lot of that had to do, in my opinion, with the Browns defense not playing that well. And there is a real stat out there. You can look it up. The Browns defense this year at home has only given up an average of 10 points per game. On the road, they've given up almost 30. Part of that could be quarterback play, that they did play Gardner Minshew on the road. They did play Denver, who doesn't have a great offense on the road. They played Burrow at home. They played San Francisco at home. So I don't know what it is about the Browns' home and road splits, but it is daunting. And CJ Beathard is going to get the start here for Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence's ankle injury is bad. I don't think it's going to mean he's going to be out for the season. Could it cost the Jags the division? Possibly. We'll see what comes about it with Houston here and the Colts, who I both have winning this week, and Jacksonville losing. But in the end, Trevor Lawrence is a star quarterback. I think he's going to be fine. The line started here at 4. I like Jacksonville when Lawrence was in. Now I really like the Browns here. Completely flipped. I would take the Browns -3 before it moves again. Very interesting game here. Indianapolis at Cincinnati. 2 backup quarterbacks. Gardner Minshew, Jake Browning. Now, when Anthony Richardson went down for the Colts, I kept saying it. I thought Gardner Minshew was going to win games for them. I did not think that Shane Steichen, who is a brilliant offensive coach, and I really like him, and obviously Minshew was with Steichen in Philadelphia, but I did not think the Colts could look this good consistently with Minshew at the quarterback position. And I thought Cincinnati, after watching that game against Pittsburgh when Jake Browning started, I thought Cincinnati was just going to pack it in and not win a game the rest of the year. And Jake Browning only missed 5 passes against Jacksonville, and 3 of those passes were dropped. At times, he looked like Joe Burrow out there. Jamar Chase had a great game. I could see this a lot like the Tennessee game. It's a very high-scoring game. Indianapolis does not have a great secondary. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd can sort of eat on that. Joe Mixon has a good game on the ground. I can also see Zach Moss having a good game on the ground for the Colts, as they have not lost a step without Jonathan Taylor. In the end, I need to see Jake Browning do it in consecutive back-to-back weeks on a short week here. I think Indianapolis wins a close one on the road. My next best bet, I'm going to take Baltimore here minus 7.5. I think the Ravens, due to the Rams, what they did to Seattle and Detroit earlier in the year. Lamar Jackson has only lost one time to an NFC opponent in his career. It's very hard to prepare for Baltimore when you have not seen Lamar Jackson yet. And the Rams defense, even though we know their offense is sort of overachieving order, their defense is still not great outside of Aaron Donald. I think Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp and Nakuba, who seemingly went down in that game against Cleveland, I think the Rams are going to need to be able to score to keep up with Baltimore. I don't think they do that. I think this could get out of hand quickly here. I think Lamar Jackson has a special performance. I think Baltimore, who of course will be coming off their bye, a late bye, getting rested. I think Lamar Jackson has a really good game here, and I think the Ravens beat down the Rams. I think they cover the 7.5-point spread. Then we have Houston at the Jets. I know a lot of people think I don't like the Texans. I actually do like the Texans. I just don't think that they're as good as everybody says they are. They struggled with Arizona a couple weeks ago. They struggled last week to really put away Denver when they should have. Their offense did not look the same. Went and Dell went out early in that game last week. Could be game plan. Part of it could be scheme. Jets are going back to Zach Wilson. And we've seen the Jets this year pretty much win 4 games. Well, 3, obviously the Giants they won. But they did, beat Buffalo week 1. They did beat Philly. They did take Kansas City to the wire. They did beat Denver. That was earlier in the season. But sometimes for a young quarterback, when you've got bench, and again, Zach Wilson's going to come out there. He's not that confident. I get it. The Jets are a mess offensively. And I know the Texans have a really good defense. Will Anderson's making a case for himself to be potentially rookie of the year on that side of the ball, along with CJ Stroud. Houston in on the number 2 and number 3 pick, really set their franchise up going forward. But the Jets are sort of a great defensive team that hangs their head on defense. I think they're going to create some turnovers. I think they're going to find a way to keep this game close. And Houston has not shown the ability lately to be able to put a team away, which is why I'm apprehensive about making a bet here. I like the Texans to win in the money line, but I am not going to make the bet. And this one is another one of my best bets. So outside of Thursday night, 3 of my best bets this week are going to be in the 1 o'clock window. Not only Cleveland, not only Baltimore, but I like Chicago +3, and I like them to win outright. Not only am I best betting them, I think they come in. I think they upset the Detroit Lions. They should have in week 11 in a dome where the Lions are comfortable. I talked about this all year long. When the Lions are playing in good weather, they look really good most weeks. They struggled against their division rival Bears in week 11. Lost to Green Bay in week 12. Outside of week 4 against the Packers when they dominated the first half, they have not played well in their division. They still have 2 games left against Minnesota. One of them will be in Minnesota. One of them will be in Detroit week 16 and week 18. Depending on what the Vikings do, it may not decide the NFC North, but that's going to be playoff position. But I think the Lions suffer a big loss here at Chicago. Justin Fields has played well over the last couple of weeks. DJ Moore is starting to get more involved. We all think Matt Eberflus is going to be fired at the end of the year. But Chicago's got to make a decision on Justin Fields. And with Arizona winning games with Kyler Murray, can Chicago do the same thing and win games with Justin Fields? It's kind of what we all predicted the last couple of weeks when we took a look at the NFL draft order. And we said the Giants are winning games with Tommy DeVito. All of a sudden, New England and Carolina, at least if Carolina can win one more game now with the new interim head coach, Chris Tabor, could have opened up the door for New England to get the number 1 pick, because both Chicago, both Arizona are going to win games. Arizona has won games. I think Chicago here, cold weather. Jared Goff will struggle. The offense will struggle. Justin Fields will make a bigger play late. He will outplay Jared Goff in this game. Bears get the upset at home. I'm taking them +3. Then I got New Orleans, who bounced back, obviously, in a big way in the second half. They did not pull out the victory against Detroit, but they are still somehow alive in the NFC South, especially if Tampa knocks off Atlanta. Then they all would be, bottled up at that 6-7 mark. Bryce Young really struggled against the Saints. Remember, that was a week 2 game. That was Monday Night Football. I predict Carolina to win that game. That was at the time when I was more high on the Panthers than I ever should have been. It was my biggest miss in the NFL in maybe the last 5-10 years. Was I thought this Carolina team could win the NFC South. But listen, the whole division's a crapshoot. The Saints have a really good defense. They still don't have a great offense, but they'll hang in here. I'm not gonna take the bet because just like last week, Carolina and Tampa. Carolina, they covered against Tampa. The line was 5.5. Do they play better here against the Saints? Do they make it a closer game? It's a possibility. Again, division games are always weary. Now, Tampa at Atlanta. Now, if you remember, Atlanta went to Tampa and won the game. I believe it was in like week 9, week 10, something like that. It was about a month ago. Desmond Ritter did not play great. Baker Mayfield turned the ball over a lot of times. There were some wacky plays in that game. But in the end, I said Atlanta can beat up bad teams. Desmond Ritter is not great. They're still not using Bijan Robinson the way I want Arthur Smith and the Falcons to use him. Both of these teams are inconsistent, but Atlanta's at home. They've been very good at home, and their defense is getting better. Tampa, who couldn't even cover against Carolina, I think is starting to struggle a little bit here down the stretch. Their schedule gets a little bit easier. So does Atlanta. The winner of this game could very well win this NFC South division and more than likely go up against Dallas in the wild card round. I got the Falcons at home. Vikings at Raiders. I got the Raiders here. I got Antonio Pierce at home in Vegas going out with the victory. Vegas has had a rough last couple of weeks, but the opponents they've had to take on, Miami, Kansas City. Now they come off a bye. So does Minnesota. Minnesota does get Justin Jefferson back, which is a matchup problem for the Raiders. But Antonio Pierce's defense had a huge matchup problem against the Dolphins, and they almost came out with the victory. It's just Aiden O'Connell could not make enough plays. I don't think the Vikings defense is great. I think this is a natural letdown game for Minnesota. Raiders have played better under Antonio Pierce. I think they're going to run the football. I think they jump out. I think they get the victory. Broncos at Chargers. This is a weird one. The line is 2.5. To me, this is a toss-up. I would never really bet this game. I'm going to take the better quarterback here. Usually, obviously, better coach. Sean Payton against Brandon Staley. But I think the Chargers were embarrassed last week, only putting up 6 points against New England. I know Denver's good. They're probably going to force a turnover. But the Chargers know how to put up points. They just don't know how to stop people. The only way Denver's going to win this game is if they force a lot of turnovers, if they do not turn the ball over. Obviously, I talked about it last week against Houston. Turning the ball over did them in. I said it would because they were getting turnovers at an alarming rate that was unsustainable. Russell Wilson has had good numbers, but outside of a throw or two a game, he's not throwing the football down the field. It's still a lot of run game. It's still not perfect. I think Justin Herbert is a good enough quarterback here to lead the Chargers, and it may be a Bronco home game, even though it's in Los Angeles. I think Herbert is just an overcomer here, and he gets the victory. My last best bet on the board, I have Seattle. I don't have them winning, but I have them covering the 10.5 against the Niners. My reasoning for this is we all watched the Thanksgiving game between the Niners and Seahawks, and I picked San Francisco at that point to pretty much take out Seattle because at that point it was a mismatch. And I understand nothing has changed personnel-wise. San Francisco still matches very well with Seattle. But the Seahawks offense came alive last week, even though they lost to Dallas. I do worry about their offensive line. I do worry about Geno Smith. I think there's a ceiling there with Seattle. But last year, at least, in all 3 games that Seattle and San Francisco played, including one in the postseason, Seattle kept it mostly close. And I do think it's hard to blow out a team as well coached as Pete Carroll is, as good as Seattle is, and they may get Kenneth Walker back this week. Who knows? But they still have DK Metcalf. They still have Tyler Lockett. They still have Jackson Smith and Jigba. They have good corners. They just don't have the overall skill talent that San Francisco has. But Seattle is a well-coached team that can put up points, when Geno Smith is right. And I think this Seattle team finds a way to hang in there competitive because of their huge losing streak. They know here if they don't win one of these next two games against San Francisco or Philly, they're probably out of the playoff hunt. They've had such a bad stretch here. Again, I don't think they can beat San Francisco, but I think they can cover a 10.5-point spread, mostly because it's Pete Carroll, and I think it's very hard to blow out a team, especially that was embarrassed on Thanksgiving by San Francisco. Seattle is going to play their heart out. Now, this one, I got to admit, when the line came out, I love Buffalo plus 2.5. It was initially going to be my best bet. This may be just gut feeling over betting here, which is why I don't trust myself, which is why I'm just going to make the money line pick, especially when Kansas City lost to Green Bay last week, because Kansas City always bounces back. But what I saw out of Josh Allen since Joe Brady took over as offensive coordinator against the Jets and then against Philly, Josh Allen and Buffalo's offense looks like a completely different offense, and Buffalo is coming off a bye. And I said this about Kansas City in my Tuesday recap. Juju Smith-Schuster, for some odd reason last year, helped Kansas City spread the field and still allowed them to have explosive plays. Where Rice and Sky Moore and these wide receivers, Kansas City, outside of Kelsey, their second most explosive player this year is Isaiah Pacheco, a running back. And because of that, they have to nickel and dime you all the way down the field. Where I think Buffalo, who has a great plan against Kansas City, I said I don't always love McDermott as a head coach, but he is a spectacular defensive coordinator. I think Buffalo has Kansas City's number in the regular season. We all know if it wasn't for the 13 seconds 2 years ago, Buffalo would have went to the AFC Championship game. They've gone into Kansas City the last two times they played and beat the Chiefs. I think they do the same thing here. I'll take Buffalo, no bet, just straight up money line, even though they're 2.5-point dogs, to beat Kansas City. Same thing for Philly and Dallas. Philadelphia, embarrassed by San Francisco last week. They're going to come out against the division rival that they hate. They're going to play well. They're going to run the football as fans out up signs at the NovaCare complex today that Nick Sirianni basically gave them coffee for. And the Philadelphia Eagles are going to sweep their arch rival Dallas Cowboys for the first time since 2011. This series has been completely even, it feels like, and it usually feels like the home team in the game actually loses. For a long time, Philly had a lot of success at Dallas, and Dallas had a lot of success at Philly. That's flipped over the last couple of years, and Philly feels good about going into Dallas because they should have won there last year. Obviously Gardner Minshew started over Jalen Hurts in that game. We all know about the Cowboys' home streak. We all know Dallas is favored by 3.5. Philly is hearing the noise this week about their defense, about their offense. They're overrated. They're not good. David Carr even suggested playing Marcus Mariota over Jalen Hurts. Overreaction Monday happens. Eagles are a little better than Dallas. It's very similar to the game they played last year in Dallas. Very similar to the game they played in Philly this year. I think it's 36-33. Philly wins. Then we get to the two Monday night games where I think Miami just beats up on Tennessee. Derrick Henry is going to play. He's no longer in concussion protocol, but the Titans are not going to be able to keep up with that high-flying Dolphins offense. Miami will probably cover the 13.5-point spread, which is the biggest spread of the week. Second biggest was San Francisco, 10.5. But again, 13.5-point spreads are huge. If you cover them, you pretty much have to blow them out, which again, I think could be the situation here, but there's better bets on the board. And then I'll take Green Bay. Longer week. Now the Giants are coming off a bye, and Brian Daboll, I'm sure, is going to have some things planned up for Tommy DeVito. But with the way Jordan Love is playing, with his confidence, 3 straight sort of standalone games, right? Thanksgiving against the Lions, Sunday night against Kansas City, Monday night against the Giants. Jordan Love has a big opportunity to go 3-0 in those games, and the Packers, pretty much, if they win this game, can cement their spot in the NFC playoffs. I think the Giants' defense could keep it close. It could be a little more low scoring than we expect, maybe a 2014 type ball game. There's a chance the Giants can backdoor cover the 6.5 point spread, which is why I'm not going to bet it. I've already made all 5 of my bets for this week, but I think Green Bay wins in the money line. So to recap my money line picks, I have Pittsburgh over New England, Cleveland over Jacksonville, Indy over Cincinnati, Baltimore over the Rams, Houston over the Jets, Chicago over Detroit, New Orleans over Carolina, Atlanta over Tampa, Vegas over Minnesota, Chargers over Denver, San Fran over Seattle, Buffalo over Kansas City, Philly over Dallas, Miami over Tennessee, and Green Bay over the Giants. My 5 best bets for Week 14 of the 2023 NFL season are: I like New England not to win, but cover the 6 against Pittsburgh. I like Cleveland -3 against Jacksonville. I like Baltimore to cover 7.5 against the Rams. I like Chicago not only in the money line, but straight up 3-point dog at home. I think they get to Jared Goff and the Lions. And I like the Seahawks not to win, but I think they cover plus 10.5 against the San Francisco 49ers. Like that clip from the Brands World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brands World podcast right here on YouTube.